All right. Let's get into this. Ole Miss versus the Florida Gators. I thought about this from the very beginning. Go back and look at the tapes from last week. I already called it. I said Ole Miss was the biggest loser last week because they did not play. Florida played, got DJ Lagway back into the groove, won a very big game, and I knew that their momentum was going to lead into this game. And I thought that it was very silly, very foolish of Lane Kiffen to have that press conference where he's talking about, I'm talking to a lot of coaches and, a lot of us don't want to go into the SEC title game. You gonna have to make it into the game first, bruh. I didn't expect them to win this game, honestly, well before he did that conference. Well before that press conference, I didn't expect Ole Miss to win this game because I think DJ Lagway is a winner. I think he is dangerous on offense, and when he has the ball in his hand, he helps the run game be more successful. When you watch Florida versus Miami at the start of the season, they struggled to run the ball. It's what they wanted to do. It's what they wanted to do in that game. They tried to run it more than they tried to pass it, and that's been Florida's identity all season. But they were unable to run the ball except for 1 long run against the Hurricanes. But they were unable to run the ball, and it has a lot to do with the fact that they were unable to pass. Because when Florida's able to pass, whether that be 15 yards down the field, 25, 40, it makes the safeties sit back. It makes the safeties and corners say, I don't want to get beat deep. So that automatically nullifies 4 people who can just be screaming downhill at the running back. And now you're looking at your guys versus their next 7. And it might not even be 7 because you might have some of those linebackers back in coverage. When Lane Kiffen said what he said in that press conference, I knew they was in trouble. I knew he wasn't focused. How the hell you focus on the SEC championship game when you still got Florida? You got Florida. And this is a team that just last week beat LSU, ended LSU's SEC title hopes, ended LSU's conference, college football playoff hopes. And none of that screams to you that I don't even care to talk about the SEC title game. I got to win next week. I got to win out every single game. Otherwise, we're not going to have a chance. Well, all that's over and done with. Lane Kiffen and Ole Miss lose to the Florida Gators. As far as I'm concerned, Ole Miss stands for almost. This team has constantly been a team that possibly can be good. Almost is good enough. Yes, y'all beat Georgia. You were able to have the right matchups. I think you guys were able to come into that game and you knew we're playing Georgia. We got to bring our best. But if you're not able to get the guys ready to play against Florida, well then you're not the right coach for the job because every single game matters. And you playing in the SEC, bruh. Teams in the SEC is losing to Vanderbilt when they're not showing up the right way or showing up with the right game plan. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky because they didn't have the right mindset, the right game plan, weren't checking anything down. We're just trying to beat everybody deep and win big, make big plays, make the winning play constantly. I want to get into my notes here. I'm going to run down as much as I can until I feel like I got to stop and really build on it. DJ Lagway, very special. Give this man one more season. Next season, in my opinion, he's going to be in consideration for Heisman votes. He does not even need to throw the ball an excessive amount of times to make plays. DJ Lagway can throw the ball 14 times and can potentially have 4 touchdowns because of how precise his deep ball is. He gives his wide receivers an opportunity to shine because he's looking for the deep play. And that deep play, like I said, is keeping defenses honest, and it's making it a lot easier for Florida to run the ball. Trey Harris, very special. I don't know if this game is the same result if he stays in the game because Florida is one of the worst teams when it comes to giving up the big play. Florida is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the top 10 teams in giving up the big play. They're overly aggressive, their DBs are. So they want to make the play well within a 20 to 30 yard radius. But when you have a speedster, when you have a guy who can just get up on your feet, then you're going to be able to make a play against the Gators deep, potentially. This season, at least. We'll see what happens next season. We'll see if the Gators are able to start getting some more support on the back end. But Trey Harris played big. It was sad to see him get out of the game in general, just from the perspective of wanting to watch the best game. But his exiting absolutely set the Gators up to be able to control the speed of Ole Miss's wide receiving core. Now, Jaxson Dart was able to move down the field constantly against Georgia with that wide receiving core without Trey Harris. But for some reason in this game, nobody wanted to talk about Florida's D-line. Nobody talked about it. Everybody just kept talking about Ole Miss's D-line. But people got to consider the quarterback too. Your offensive line is an extension of the quarterback. The quarterback can compensate for your offensive line strengths and weaknesses. If your offensive line is missing a couple blocks here and there, your quarterback might be able to get away, make a play to where, okay, it didn't even hurt. It might show up on tape, but it won't show up on the stat sheet. You didn't see a sack there. Just last week, I talked about how DJ Lagway made big plays on plays specifically where he could have been sacked for 5 yards, but instead he stepped up in the pocket, threw it on the run, and threw a touchdown or got the Gators down in the goal line. Same thing in this game. His ability to move around in the pocket mobilizes the Gators, okay? He's able to move around and avoid stacks while keeping his eyes down the field. I think that Lagway is absolutely going to be the quarterback that people don't want to see come next season. You're looking at players like DJ Lagway, and you're looking at players like Lenore Sellers. They're going to give everybody a handful. I like Nico Iamaleava. Nico has some things to put together as it pertains to allowing Tennessee's attack to consistently be a variety attack. We can beat you in the air, we can beat you on the ground. Tennessee's hurting right now because they have to beat you on the ground. Yeah, they beat the team they beat today, UTEP or something like that, because they're playing UTEP. And Nico threw for 3 or 4 tutties today because it's UTEP. Just like how he did at the beginning of the season, but he hasn't been making those throws against Georgia. So when it comes down to Lagway, again, like I said, Lagway mobilizes this team's offense. He mobilizes the players, gets them the ball in the right spots at the right time, and he's going to be a big reason why this team is successful next season. Since he's been in the lineup, since he's been starting, they have beat 2 ranked teams. There's no way that they're going to allow the Gators to be ranked, but they just beat 2 ranked teams. If the Gators played a ranked team next week, they probably would mess around and tie that stat that Kansas has today as the only team to ever beat 3 ranked teams in a row. Now, I love the way Jaxson Dart came out. I do love watching this guy play, but he can be a little reckless. And in a game like this, just his gunslinger energy, you can see it show rear its ugly face just at the end of the game. Those last 2 interceptions on, if I'm not mistaken, his last 2 drives. And I mean, he made throws. He made great throws. He made very, very good throws. But this Gators team has been underestimated. And I think it has a lot to do with the way they started the season. They didn't know their identity on defense. They damn sure didn't know their identity on the defensive line. I'm going to talk about the Miami Hurricanes in a bit. But the Hurricanes started out the season, I think, trying to prove themselves quickly, and they used the Gators as an example. They made an example out of that team, and I think the Gators losing that game, I think it hurt their identity. I think it hurt their confidence. I think it hurt their ego. I think they tried to get their ego back by beating up on some smaller teams, some teams of lesser stature, but then they got their ego checked by Texas A&M, and it continued to happen just by way of the Gators being in some games and then losing those games. So credit to the Gators for getting to this point of the season where they're now eligible for a bowl game and are starting to see what they can be. This team can be absolutely special come next season, and they will be, because I think they're only going to get better. I think their recruiting class is only going to get better. Now, I just want to say, I genuinely do not like the way Napier calls games. Napier calls games to not lose. He is a passive coach. There are wide receivers that are considered as deep threats. There are wide receivers that are considered as your speedster, your possession wide receiver. Billy Napier is like a possession wide receiver. He's going to try to get to the sticks and just try to get the first down. He plays a conservative game. It's worked the last 2 weeks. I think Lagway has a lot to do with that. Lagway makes it work because he's able to convert on deep throws, and he's able to legitimize the athletes on this team. He's able to find their strengths and help their strengths shine. But Napier does things that I think sometimes can hurt the Florida Gators. They had a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. Game is tied. And in my opinion, every single possession matters. You don't get a ton of possessions. Look at the Colorado-Kansas game. Colorado had the ball for 20 minutes. Kansas had the ball for 40 minutes. Colorado lost that game 37-21. And on multiple possessions that they did get on offense, that they managed to get on offense because they didn't get the ball that much, didn't keep the ball that much either. They didn't score. When you can't score and you're not getting that many possessions, you lose automatically. It doesn't matter who you are. Almost doesn't matter who you're going up against. There's just so many more opportunities for the other team to beat you, whether it be special teams, whether it be on defense, or whether it be on when they're on offense. Billy Napier, though, far too often is playing not to lose instead of playing to win. We got the ball with 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the second quarter, and he called 5 straight draw plays. I mean, why? Why are you even doing that? Why not try to go down there and get a field goal, get 7 points? Because you're going up against a team that's got more firepower than you, more 5 stars than you, and every single possession matters. Why aren't you just trying to get a first down? At the very least, just get a first down. That is the goal of every possession, is a first down. Even before a touchdown, the goal is to get a first down and to keep the drive moving. But, he's not focused on that. He instead is focused on playing it safe and going into halftime. And the Gators got the ball coming out of halftime. So the Gators could have gotten some points, even if it's just a field goal. And they have a very good field goal kicker who kicks from 50 and beyond convincingly. They didn't even try. They instead were hoping that they get a big run play and then they would have possibly tried. But you got 1 minute and 20 seconds and you had a timeout. I just don't understand why Billy Napier is so conservative. To me, it's the kind of play calling that just makes me fear what Billy Napier how Billy Napier could potentially hurt this team next year. They got all the pieces, dog. The Gators got all the pieces. Listen, man, this Gators team, nobody can't tell me that this Gators team could not have been in the SEC title game, could not have been in the college football playoff run. Nobody can't tell me that. Nobody can't tell me this team does not have the talent to do it. This is the same Gators team that was about to beat Georgia, had them on the ropes. Nobody can't tell me this Gators team can't beat Miami when Miami over here struggling with Wake Forest and Duke and Virginia Tech and Cal. No, you can't tell me that, dog. And if you choose to put that in the comments, shame on you. Shame on you. You foolish. Nobody can't tell me that. But Billy Napier can hurt this team. He still hurts this team in the way he calls plays. Period and point blank. His real strength, I don't even know how it's his strength. I don't know how this dude does it. It's probably the fact that he gets to represent a brand like Florida. His real strength is in recruiting. His real strength is recruiting. Because let Lagway would have went to Michigan. This Michigan team is in the playoffs. Let Lagway would have went to TCU. TCU in the playoffs. Let Lagway would have been at UCF. UCF is in the playoffs. Let Lagway would have went to Florida State. Florida State's in the playoffs. Your quarterback matters. Your quarterback can help you win at least 3 out of 4 games, 3 out of 75% of the games throughout the entire season. So the Gators have all the pieces that they need. They losing pieces. Trey Wilson ain't even playing. And they over here beating Ole Miss, a team full of 5 stars. Trey Wilson not playing. They beat LSU. They beat Ole Miss. They almost beat Georgia. Napier, just with this primitive style of coaching, I feel like can in some ways hurt the Gators team next season. His biggest strength, what's working in his favor, is the fact that the Gators have DJ Lagway, and when Lagway's on the field, there's a higher potential that the pass is completed, whether it be deep, whether it be short, especially if it's deep. So that's the only thing that's bailing him out. I'm just going to keep this rolling. Third quarter, we got the ball right when we came out of halftime. After that possession where we chose not to do anything with that 2-minute possession. Mind you, Napier did the same thing against Miami. He did the same thing against the Hurricanes. So it's who he is. We get the ball coming out of halftime. And then the first thing we do is there's a big sack, a big penalty. We run a draw play on 2nd and long. And then we have 3rd down and 29. 3rd down and 29 coming out of halftime. If it wasn't for Ole Miss having that muffed punt, the Gators don't get the ball back. Despite the fact that the Gators did get the ball back, the Gators got 3 points in 4 possessions. 3. The Gators had a turnover, then they had a turnover on downs, that 2-minute possession, and then a 3 and out. If we were better and more consistent on offense, this Gator team would be winning game in, game out. This Gator team wouldn't have just been figuring out that they're going to a bowl. This Gator team, in my opinion, listen, man, you call me a homer. Call me crazy. Call me whatever you want to. There's no reason why this Gator team cannot be undefeated, man. It's no reason. Gonna keep this rolling. Lane Kiffen. Lane Kiffen is thirsty, man. He's thirsty, and I think it shows in his players too. He should have kicked the field goal. He did not kick the field goal. Gators stopped them on the goal line twice, but he went for it on 2 fourth down possessions in the goal line instead of trying to kick the field goal and trying to get the points. You got to pay attention to what kind of game you playing. There's sometimes you get into a game of chess or checkers and you just think you're going to do your thing, king me, and just be jumping and doing everything that you want to do on the board. Sometimes it don't work like that. It's sometimes the game just move a little different, start off a little different. Sometimes the other person gets to make the first move, and the way they make the first move implements, just solidifies what kind of game it's going to be. And sometimes the whole game, you're actually playing defense. Sometimes you're playing defense because you can't get ahead because they scored first. And every single time you scored, you were scoring to respond to their score instead of you scoring and then scoring again to put the game further away from them. So there's sometimes you don't get to just dictate what kind of game it is, but instead of Lane Kiffen paying attention to that, he kept trying to dictate that his team was supposed to dominate. But nobody has given the Gators defensive line any credit, and this team has been playing with their hair on fire. They've been playing better than just about every single D-line for the past 2 to 3 weeks. It just boggles my mind that coaches ain't paying attention to this. This game was more important for Ole Miss to get out with a win as opposed for them to get out with a win and some style points. Instead, they just lose. Lane Kiffin's thirst, in my opinion, thirst to win a game in a way that he would prefer to win it, I believe hurts him. If he doesn't go for it on either of those fourth downs, and when I see here on fourth down efficiency, Ole Miss was 2 out of 4. They were 50% on fourth down. If he doesn't go for it on neither of those fourth downs, takes the field goal, then the Ole Miss Rebels are looking, almost Rebels are looking at a 24-23 ball game. And instead of Jaxson Dart forcing it 2 times on 2 possessions and throwing 2 interceptions, that could have been a field goal that ended the game. Listen, the game is won and lost. It's a game of inches, and it's genuinely won and lost when you make every choice you make, every possession. The game is lost with every single possession, with every single choice you make within those possessions. Moving on. Teams, like I said, teams take on the personality of their head coach. Jaxson Dart trying to throw that deep ball with 1 minute and 30 seconds left. He threw it into triple coverage. He didn't throw it to his tallest wide receiver. He tried to throw it to his fastest, most explosive wide receiver who had 3 guys covering him. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. Are you doing that because you disrespect this defense and you don't think this defense is good? What was y'all watching in y'all film room? I swear every single time the media starts hyping up a team, they start buying it. They start believing it. Teams like Texas have been kind of lucky that they've been able to fly under the radar. The only time Texas is all in the headlights is when Arch Manning gets on the field. Every single time somebody jumps on the hype train, man. Indiana, Tennessee, it just train stalls. Teams start buying their own hype. I just think the way that they approached the end of this game was wildly thirsty. I think Ole Miss was scratching and clawing and just desperately trying to win at the end of the game. You got to try to win the whole game. You got to try to win on the ground. Try to win in the air. Try to win on third down. Try to win on fourth down if you're going for it on fourth down. But the first play that they went for it on fourth down, Jaxson Dart was the lead blocker for the tight end. Come on, dog. That's when you know you're being too cute. That's when you know you're being too cute. They try to get the tight end out, and Jaxson Dart was in front of him. Jaxson Dart didn't try to block nobody, mind you. I don't think he expected to be the lead blocker. I think he expected the play to just work. Expectations. Expectations will hurt you. Coming into a game expecting to win, expect the fight. Expect the battle. Expect that they're going to try to beat you. But expecting to just win, I mean, I think it's nice to try to have expectations that your team is a winning team and got winning culture. But when you buying into your expectations above playing with discipline, you're not going to be able to win. You can't win. You don't deserve to win. Last few notes here. Billy Napier, again, calls 3 straight run calls. This is after Jaxson Dart's second interception, the one that happened in the end zone. Billy Napier calls 3 straight run calls, doesn't focus on winning the game, just wants to not lose. He instead runs the ball 3 times in a row instead of trying to get a first down. You got Lane Kiffen over here using his timeouts, and you just run the ball again. No play action fake, no rollout. Let's just run it. Let's just hope for the result that we want. I'm watching so much bad coaching, it just riles me up, man. It riles me up, man. The goal is to get a first down. That is always the goal of every single possession. The goal doesn't become let's go get a touchdown until you're in the goal line and there are no more first downs to get. Even when you got a kickoff, the goal isn't necessarily to score. The goal is good field possession because the game is a game of field possession, time possession, field possession. That's how you win this game. That's why Georgia was able to come back against Alabama. Field possession. Their defense started getting them the ball with small field. That's why Georgia was able to beat Florida. Field possession. They don't have to drive 90 yards while Carson Beck is struggling. Nope, just 30 yards. Field possession. Sometimes it's time of possession. That's why Georgia Tech beat Miami last week. That's why Kansas beat Colorado this week. Time possession. Time of possession. We're playing keep away. You don't get to play offense. So Napier, he just strikes me as a coach who is a 500 coach. He screams 500. That's all I see when I look at him. It was so easy. I kind of said this already, but I'll reiterate. Nobody was talking about how well Florida's defensive line had been playing and how that might create some trouble for Jaxson Dart. Nobody was talking about that. The Gators just got off of a big win. Ole Miss, they just got off of hanging out last Saturday. Nobody was talking about that. Everybody just goes into these Saturdays again like they just expect what happened last week to happen this week, as if they ain't been watching this sport for however many years. But it just trips me out because Ole Miss does not have a winning pedigree. They don't have a winning history. People are falling in love with this team's roster and their effort in their biggest game of their season at that time. But every single next game is your next biggest game because if you can't keep it up, if you aren't consistent, you don't get to keep playing in the biggest games. You don't get the next biggest game. Your next biggest game almost can become a game that doesn't necessarily matter as much. Very proud of the Florida Gators. I'm extremely proud of the Gators. I'm more so, when it comes to this game, I'm more so coming for Ole Miss and for pundits who just know it all. And I'm coming for Ole Miss because Lane Kiffen, I like Lane Kiffen because of his experience, but his experiences tend to always fall short. For Lane Kiffen to have this press conference talking about the SEC championship game and how some guys don't want to play in it, Lane, you ain't got to worry about that, bro, because you're not going to be playing in it no more. And the only way you could have been playing in it was to win out. And you didn't do that. I would be infuriated if Ole Miss gets a chance to continue on into the college football playoff. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it because you're not getting into the SEC title game. There are other SEC teams who are closer than you are and deserve that opportunity as far as I'm concerned. Tennessee deserves to get in there before Ole Miss does, in my opinion, at the very least. Because, with Ole Miss, your two biggest losses. With Ole Miss, you got big losses to two unranked teams. Two of them. Kentucky and Florida. Mind you, this Florida team is not the same team they were at the beginning of the season. But those two big losses that you have there, you don't get to play into this playoff. You don't get to go into this playoff game and potentially win a championship. And I did think that what Lane Kiffen said was crazy. I'm going to talk about that later in my 2-minute drill. I thought what he said was crazy. You should want to represent your conference. You should want to win every game. That should be the mindset. Now the mindset is play it safe. We don't want to play in the SEC title game. Do you understand how stupid you sound? You understand how lame you sound? That's who he is to me. Lame Kiffen. It's ridiculous. Last but not least, last two thoughts. The Gators D-line did not have the sack numbers, but they had the hurries, they had the pressures. They forced Jaxson Dart to move when he didn't want to throw how he didn't want to, when he didn't want to, and where he didn't want to. Got to give it up to the defensive line. It all starts at the D-line. It always starts at the line of scrimmage. It always does. My last thought. The only person to blame, in my opinion, is Lane Kiffen. His overconfidence bled into his team's veins. He didn't take the Gators seriously. This is not the same Gators team that started the season. And he should have known that. And he should have expressed that to his team. Every single week, the team that you're playing is trying to beat you. Especially if you got the numbers. Especially if you're that next team. I came out here to Hollywood and I started booking roles. And as soon as I started booking roles, you think that people who were buddying up next to me, you think they were trying to be my friend? They wanted the role that I had. They were asking me questions like, how you got that role? When you saw that role? Who's your rep? They want to be in the position that you are. Your team should have been well aware that this Gators team is coming out here with nothing but bowl game hopes in mind. They don't just want to have a 6-game win season and go to a whack bowl. No, they want a 7-game win season on a 3-game winning streak so that they can go into next season, so that they can go into the recruiting season even, and they can be able to use the momentum, that culture that you bought and paid for. It looks really good on paper, but to tie it all together, you need the leader on the field and you need the leader on the sideline. And lame Kiffen ain't that guy. Shout out to the Florida Gators for getting that dub. I'm very proud of those guys for being bowl eligible. Proud of them for getting this win over Ole Miss, a ranked team, the number 9th team in the country. Listen, man, give it up to the Florida Gators getting 2 wins in a row over 2 ranked teams. Stop playing with this team, man. And just the week before that, they were about to beat the Georgia Bulldogs. This Gators team could have messed around and been ranked. Stop playing with them. Let's go.